Alright, let's continue looking at properties of exponents. Remember that if you multiply powers with the same base, you can add their exponents. So x to the a power times x to the b power is the same thing as x raised to the power a plus b. And over here, if we're raising a power to another power, we multiply the exponents. So this x to the a raised to the power of b would be x raised to whatever a times b is. Remember that anything raised to the power of 0 is 1. Remember that when we divide powers with the same base, we are subtracting. So in this case, this would be whatever x raised to the a minus b. Here, remember that when we have a negative exponent, we want to make it happy by either moving it to our numerator or our denominator. In this case, x to the negative a is in our numerator over 1, so we would write this as its reciprocal, 1 over x to the positive a. Here we have a product raised to a power. Each of our factors inside of the parentheses has to have our exponent distributed to it. So in this case, we'd have x to the power of a and y to the power of a. And we would write it like this, x to the a, y to the a. Alright, so let's go ahead and practice putting all of those rules together. Again, this is just review. So if we look at number 1, the first thing that we would choose to do is get rid of our negative exponents. So I'm going to take the x to the negative 4 and move it to our numerator, and take the x to the negative 5 and move it to our denominator. So I'm going to rewrite that. Remember that it's always a good idea to rewrite each step when working with properties of exponents so that you don't get confused. It's very hard to work with all of the changes that need to be done in your head. So we have 2x to the 14th, y to the 12th, over 3x to the 5th, y to the 8th. Alright, now that we have no more negative exponents, I'm going to go ahead and look for my powers that have the same base. Right away, I notice that in the x's, I have one in the numerator and one in the denominator. So I can subtract those. So 14 minus 5 is 9. So that's going to leave me with 2x to the 9th over 3. And then I'm also going to go ahead and take a look at my y's. 12 minus 8 would be 4. So then I'm left with y to the 4th in my numerator. And this is my answer. 2x to the 9th, y to the 4th over 3. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 2. First thing I'm going to do here is distribute my power into the k to the negative second. So this is going to become negative 8 times k to the negative 4th over 4k to the negative second. Now, because this is all multiplication, this negative 8 times parentheses k to the negative 4th, these parentheses really aren't important. You don't have to have them there. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. So I have negative 8 times k to the negative 4th all over 4k to the negative second. Alright, so now I want to get rid of my negative exponents. I'm going to take k to the negative 4th, and I'm going to move it to my denominator, and k to the negative second and move it to my numerator. So now we have negative 8 k to the positive second over 4k to the positive 4. Alright, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is reduce my fraction, negative 8 over 4. Well, negative 8 over 4 is both divisible by 4, and so that's going to reduce to a negative 2 k to the second over k to the 4th. The last thing I want to do is take a look at my powers with the same base. If I subtract 2 from 4, I'm left with k squared in my denominator. So I have a negative 2 over k squared as my answer. Alright, let's take a look at number 3. First thing here let's do is distribute our exponent. So we have 6 to the negative second, y to the negative 10th, all over 3 to the negative second, y to the negative 4th. Now I want to flip everything so that my exponents are positive. So we're going to get 3 squared y to the 4th over 6 squared y to the 10th. I'm going to go ahead and simplify my 3 squared and 6 squared. So I have 9 y to the 4th over 36 y to the 10th. Now let's see if I can go ahead and just move this over so I have some more room. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is simplify my fraction, 9 over 36. Now I know that 36 is divisible by 9, so if I divide both the top and the bottom by 9, I'm left with 1, but I don't need to write the 1 because I have y to the 4th, over 9, oops, not 9, 4. Alright, let's try that again, y to the 4th over 4 y to the 10th, because 36 divided by 9 is 4. Alright, now I want to look at my y's. I have y to the 10th and a y to the 4th. If I subtract 4 from 10, I'm left with 6 y's in my denominator. So in my numerator, I have 1 over 4 y to the power of 6. And that's our answer. Alright, let's go on to number 4. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and distribute our negative exponent. So we're going to have k to the positive 4, y to the negative 4, over 3 to the negative second, x to the negative second, 5 to the negative second, y to the positive 6. I'm going to go ahead and flip everything that needs to go, well, not flip everything, but take my bases with negative exponents and either move them in numerator or denominator. So my x to the 4th is going to stay in my numerator because it's positive, but the y to the negative 4th is going to go to the denominator. Alright, so I've done with those. My 3 to the negative second is going to go to the top, so it's going to become 3 squared. My x to the negative second is going to go to the top, so it becomes positive. My 5 to the negative second is going to go to the top, so it becomes positive. Oh, and my y to the 6 is going to stay in the bottom. Alright, so let's go ahead again. I want to just make some room here so that I can get rid of some stuff. Alright. So now I'm going to go ahead and simplify my 3 squared and 5 squared, and we're going to get 9 and 25. So I'm going to put those at the front, 9 times 25. And then I've got times x to the 4th times x squared, all over y to the 4th times y to the 6th. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and multiply my 9 times 25, but I'm also going to notice that I have an x, or I have 2 x's in my numerator, so I can add their exponents. Well, first of all, 9 times 25 is 225, I believe. X to the 6th over, notice my y's have the same base, so 4 plus 6 is 10, y to the 10th. So then my answer, if I multiplied right, is 225 x to the 6th over y to the 10th. Alright, you try number 5 and 6 on your own. When you think you've got the answer, press play. Okay, so the answer to number 5 is 2x to the 7th over 5. And number 6 is 32 y to the 6th over 3x to the 6th. Hopefully you got both of those right. If you didn't, press pause, try them again, and try to find where your mistake is. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. Alright, let's go ahead and continue working with the negative exponents, but let's also look at what happens when we throw in some negative coefficients. Remember the coefficient is the number in front of the variable, not the exponent. Okay, so 3x to the negative second. A lot of people get confused here because they think the 3 and the x to the negative second are attached, but they're really not. Think of them as their own entities. So the negative 2 as an exponent only applies to the x. So really, when we go ahead and simplify this, we're only going to move the x to the negative second to our denominator. So our solution here would be 3 over x squared. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. Now again, our negative exponent only applies to our variable x, not to the 3. Now, just because the 3 is negative doesn't mean we move it, only if it has a negative exponent. So again, we're only going to take the x to the negative second and move it to our denominator. So we'll be left with a negative 3 that didn't change over x to the positive second. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 3. In number 3, our squared only applies to the x, and it's not a negative exponent, so there's nothing to do there. We're not distributing any exponents, so this answer is actually as simplified as it can be. Negative 3x squared. All right, negative 3 to the power of negative 1. All right, this is a tricky one because we're saying, what is 3 to the power of negative 1? Well, think of this as a negative 1 times 3 to the negative first. So I'm going to write that, negative 1 times 3 to the negative first. So here, the only piece that we're moving is the 3 to the negative first. And again, since it's in our numerator, we're going to move it to our denominator. And if I do that, I'm left with the negative 1 still in my numerator over 3 to the first, which is just 3. So our solution here is negative 1 over 3. All right, let's look at number 5. 3 over x to the negative second. I'm taking my x to the negative second, and to make that exponent positive, we're going to move it to our numerator. So we have 3x squared. All right, and number 6. Again, we're only looking for negative exponents, not negative numbers. So here, I'm only looking at the x to the negative second, and that I'm going to move to my numerator. So now I have the negative 3 that didn't change with x to the positive 2. All right, here, again, I only want to look at what the negative exponent is attached to. It is only attached to the x. So again, to make that exponent positive, I'm only going to move that to the numerator. So now we have an x to the positive second over the negative 3 that again didn't change. All right, same idea here. The only piece here that has the negative exponent is the variable x. So we're going to move it to our numerator, and we're going to get x squared over 3. All right, and this next one, number 9, the only piece here that has the negative exponent is x. So I'm going to move that to my denominator. Now when I do that, there's nothing in the numerator, but there has to be. So it's going to be a negative 1 over 3x squared. All right, let's go ahead and try some of these big problems. Again, we're combining all of our properties here. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of our negative exponents. So I'm going to start here with this negative 5, and I'm going to break it up, also my negative 3, and break it up. And I'm going to say that's really negative 1 times 5 to the negative second over negative 1 times 3. Now hopefully before I even start writing the rest, you know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So right away my negatives are going to cancel. Then I have my v to the negative 5th, n to the negative 1st, over v to the negative 2nd, n to the negative 3rd. Now I want to get rid of my negative exponents, so those that need to be in the numerator I'm going to move up, and those that need to be in the denominator I'm going to move down. So now I have, let's see, my 5, if I write out my fraction bar first, I know that my 5 to the negative second needs to be in the bottom. So I'm done with that. My v to the negative fifth needs to be in the denominator, and my n needs to be in the denominator. Now let's look at the bottom. 3. Well, that doesn't have a negative exponent, so that stays. But the v squared moves up, and the n cubed moves up. So now I'm going to go ahead and simplify my 5 squared and multiply it by 3. So 25 times 3 becomes 75. So I have 75 in my denominator, v squared, n cubed, and in the denominator, v to the fifth, n. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is look at my v squared and v to the fifth. I know that 2 minus 5 is negative 3, but I'm going to leave the 3 v's left in the denominator. So I have 75 v cubed times n over n cubed. Last thing I'm going to do is simplify my n's, and 3n's minus 1n leaves me with an n squared over 75 v cubed. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 11. I'm going to go ahead and make some more room. Alright, and number 11. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is get rid of my negative exponents. Actually, I'm going to get rid of my negatives because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and flip everything. So I have a 2 cubed and an x squared and a y squared in my denominator. Then I'm going to simplify my 2 cubed, which is 8, x squared over y squared, and I can't simplify it any further, so that's it. Alright, number 12, I'm going to go ahead and distribute my, this one looks like one we just did. Is it? Wait, where was that one? I think it was on the first page. Let me just go back just for a second. X to the negative second. Oh, we did. We just did it right here. Alright, so we're going to skip that one. Alright, so skip 12. Alright, we're going to go on to 13. So in number 13, the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and distribute our exponent. Now I'm just going to give myself a little bit more room. Alright, so I'm going to distribute my negative 2. So remember, this is, if I take a negative 6 raised to the negative second, I want to make sure I keep that in parentheses. Negative second. And then I have y to the negative 10th over 3 to the negative second, y to the negative 4th. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing with my negative 2. I have a, this one's trickier because this number has an exponent of 2. I'm going to separate it with the negative. So negative 1 times 4 squared times y over negative 1 times y cubed, all raised to the negative second. Now the reason that I did that is because a negative over a negative are going to cancel. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and continue. So I'm going to distribute my power. So I have 4 to the negative 4th, y to the negative second, over y to the negative 6. Now over here on this side, I'm going to flip. So I have 3 squared, y to the 4th, over negative 6 squared, y to the 10th. Alright, I'm going to simplify a couple things here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and flip my negatives on my right fraction. So first, and go ahead and simplify that. I have 9 y to the 4th. Negative 6 squared is a positive 36, y to the 10th. And on the right, I have my y to the 6th now in the numerator, my 4 to the 4th, and my y squared. Right, now I'm going to go ahead and combine what I have in the numerator So I have a 9y to the 10th over a 36 times, I believe it's 256. And then y to the 10th and y squared. And I can combine my y's. So I have 9y to the 10th over 36 times 256 y to the 12th. Now, before I go ahead and multiply the 36 and 256, I'm going to reduce the 9 and 36. So I have y to the 10th over 4 times 256 y to the 12th. I'm going to go ahead and simplify my y's. So nothing's going to be left on top, but there has to be, so it's going to be a 1. And I've got to do some math really quick up here. 256 times 4, 22, 8, 10. So I get 1 over 1024 y squared as an answer. Woo, that was a long one. All right, there's one left, number 14. Go ahead, hit pause, and try this one on your own. This is a challenge. Remember, you have to show your work and go in steps. First, distribute. Then get rid of your negative exponents. If you don't need the parentheses, get rid of them. Remember, this is all multiplication, so they might not be necessary. All right, when you're finished with number 14, have a teacher or an adult in the room check your answer. When you are finished, I believe that's it. Yep, that's it. So when you are finished with number 14 and a teacher has checked it, you can get your assignment for today.